Hello, my name is Nancy Young, and welcome to another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, a program highlighting the positive voices within our local communities and how they're impacting and uplifting our world one person at a time. Now, before we get started, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Today, we'll be highlighting your voice through that of my campaign run for mayor of Tracy. This is a special edition today, and hopefully you'll get to see a little bit of insight into my life and why I'm running and who support me today. Just a representation within our community, I have three special guests with me today: Ms. Letty Moran, Mrs. Meena Saiprasad, and Mrs. Veronica Peterson. Now at this time, let's go ahead, let's get to it. Let's talk, ladies. Welcome. So welcome, ladies. Glad to have you with us today for Your Matters with Nancy Young. And so today I have different ladies, as I said, that's joining me from my team, my core team for Nancy Young for Tracy Mayor 2020. And so we want to hear from them today, and they're going to share with you just some things about themselves and why they support this campaign, why they support my run for Mayor of Tracy 2020. And we're going to start with Miss Letty Moran.
Well, hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor, and it's also an honor to be a part of your campaign. I moved to Tracy about 15 years ago with myself. I'm a single mother with two children, and I chose Tracy because for me it seemed to be a safe community to raise my children. It was affordable for me as a single mother, and it was very diverse as well. I love that we had a lot of diversity in terms of culture here, and I really felt comfortable. And when I first actually encountered Nancy, I wanted to get more involved in the community. So I started going to the city council meetings, and I was actually shocked that there was a Black woman. Well, there were two Black women that yourself and Rhodesia sitting on the city council. So I was very intrigued. And I just started listening to how eloquent she was able to speak, how honest, pragmatic, how her just delivery was very hopeful. And she just seemed to have a very, very real insight into our community's problems and needs. And her willingness to address and examine the issues of our communities and the public's questions just really, it grabbed me. It grabbed my attention. And, I started attending them and really kind of became a fan, honestly. She was very well-spoken, African-American woman. And that was something that I was proud of. And months later, I actually wound up meeting her at I believe a holiday event. And it was funny because I kind of, felt like I was being a groupie because I was like, oh my God, there's Nancy. I want to meet her. So I was trying to figure out how can I be like, not look like a groupie, but just be. So I said, look, I'm an honest fan. So I kind of, introduced myself to her, and we just started talking, and I offered just, my help in any way that I could to support her in the campaign. I work in event marketing for the last 20 years. So I felt that, in some way, form, or fashion, I'd be able to lend my skill set to support the campaign. So that's the short version.
Well, thank you. I remember you coming up to me. We were at a Christmas ball thing for Tracy African American Association. And you asked me, could I take a picture with you? Because your daughter was actually she was actually the business young lady who was running the photo booth. And so that's how we got to meet you. And so I was thrilled to have someone who wanted to help me. And then I called you like right away, come help. I need help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still have our photo on my refrigerator that we took that night. So yeah, I was just very enamored, and I wanted to do my part, to support you and just help Tracy, continue to be a beautiful, safe community for us to live and raise our families.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Letty. So now we'll hear from Meena Saiprasad. So,
hi, I'm honored to be in your show. And how I know Nancy, First of all, let me tell you about myself. I work for the school district. I also have 4 large dogs. Some of my friends call me dog whisperer because I'm usually walking them on the street, training them, and I just love animals. That's, I can say, one of that same reason I like Nancy too, because what I see in my dogs is transparency, loyalty, unconditional love, truthfulness. The same thing I saw in Nancy. So I decided she is the best person to be around. And why I support her, it's a interesting question. There was a couple of years back, she had a rally for some injustice that happened in the city. And I met her after that, and we had several people let go from our city leadership positions. One was a police chief, one was a fire chief, one was a assistant city attorney, and the city manager also was an interim position. So that was very concerning. Most of our community members, and for me, it was very concerning. So when I was chatting with Nancy, I asked her, so are you guys looking for a new city manager? And she said, yes, we are going to hire a new city manager. Since I have seen the repeated pattern of city leadership positions getting fired and replaced by interim positions, I asked Nancy, so if something that the new city manager does and you don't like it, are you going to fire 3 to 2? And then she was so offended by that. She said, Meena, that is so not true. That's not who I am. I really have to. I respect everybody who did such hard work, stepped up to come to this position. I will never do in a million years that kind of thing. They earned whatever they are in position now. So I will never do such a thing. And she was so offended. That was very truthful, very fair, very honest. And I decided to join her, and this was something which impressed me. And then eventually I became a really close friend of her because everywhere I went to community events, public events, I saw her. She will never be in a table where there is high end people like big politicians or really big leaders. She will be in the community, just like I'm a commoner. I'm just a common public who has 4 dogs and work for the school district. She would be with only commoners, high school kids, or somebody else who is volunteering in that place, or just a general public. That impressed me so much. Recently one of my friend called her people's mayor, and I really admire that. That's who she is.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
No.
Meena. Everybody's important to me. So I love to always hear stories and hear what's of concern to everyone. And so now we'll go ahead and go to Veronica Peterson and hear from her today.
Well, hello, everyone. Nancy, Nancy is the type of person who is a people person. She really cares about the citizens of Tracy. And I know this from being around Nancy for many years. I've been with her through all 8 years of her council work as council members and mayor pro tem and so forth. And so over the years, I get a bird's eye view of a person who is approachable. The residents of Tracy can approach her, and she will go out of her way to see what the residents need, and she will take care of it. I know for a fact that there was a situation with an elementary school. I think it's West. Help me, Nancy. What is the name of that? It's that elementary school.
Southwest.
Southwest, right? And in their community around the school, there was no sidewalks, there were no street lights, and when it rained, the children had to walk through puddles in the middle of the street. And so one of the residents called Nancy, or let me keep this straight now. She contacted Nancy and asked her to come out so she could show her what the children had to go through. And so it took a while, but Nancy, she can explain a lot better than I can all the ins and outs. But the bottom line is, in the end, in results, the kids got sidewalks, street lights. So no longer walking in the middle of the streets and no longer having to go through the puddles. And then there was another situation. There's a lot of situations. There was a lady who water, she had to go without for a day. And this was on the weekend. And she had an infant in the house. And she contacted Nancy and told her what the situation was. This is a weekend. And Nancy got a hold of someone in Public Works, and there had been a problem with the water piping or something in the neighborhood. And this was the weekend, and she was able to be available to this resident and got her water back on. And and I could go on and on and on, but I do know that she's approachable, she's caring, and I've just seen her over the years really care about the residents of Tracy. And as far as me, I've once been young and now I'm older. I had children and I have grandchildren, and my education is in child development and healthcare. So I for years I've been in both, and so I've dealt with children, older adolescents, college students, young people who just got married, then finally when you get to me. And so Nancy is concerned about that everybody, about the young people. The things she's working on for the youth in the city, and for the elderly, and for the homeless. And I know I'm leaving out some things, but she is really, really, really working hard for the city of Tracy. And I think that Tracy deserves Nancy in that position so she can get so much done for the citizens or the residents of Tracy. All right, I'm done.
Well, thank you. So I just really wanted to bring you all here on my show, Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, to really just share your voice and how it's important for people to hear what you're saying and the things that are important to you. And in the course of your support for my campaign, I'm sure you're out there all the time. You're hearing people's concerns and their questions to you. And many times you're ambassadors for me, because fortunately, you know a lot about me to be able to speak on my behalf, and things that you're not sure about, you forward it to me. And so like for Veronica Peterson, she's over the phone banking. So if you've gotten a call, it's either her or somebody on her team that's called you. Meena's walking around town, vote for Nancy. She stands for mayor. And so, and Letty's out there, getting out things to get people to come. And I'm actually have introduced me to a whole new segment of people within Tracy that I had not met before. And so all these ladies have questions I'm sure that they have that they would like to share and ask me. So I'm going to open up the floor and I'll leave it. And then maybe we'll start with Letty, and then we'll go to Meena, and then we'll go to Veronica to ask some questions. What would you like to ask me to share with our public today?
Awesome. Well, I think it'd be fitting to start with, since we know that you're very, very involved and passionate about community. So I think it'd be fair to start with asking you, what community involvement projects or accomplishments are you most proud of currently, as it relates to what you've done here in Tracy?
Okay, as has already been mentioned before, I've been on the council now for 8 years. I started out in the audience 4 years prior to that. I was a fixture there. I felt like it was important for me to learn what was really going on in my city before I could decide whether or not how I could be really a part of that. And so even though I did run in 2010 and I didn't win, I ran continuously all the way to 2012, and then I did win. But at the same time, I found what I could do within the community to be of service where I was. It's just like, that person that wants that mic all the time. Maybe they're the back singer, maybe they're the support staff in the back. You do what you can to be able to still help your community. And so I started out joining Tracy African American Association, was the first organization. And then from there, it really just grew. I became a mentor through the Student Discovery Program. And I when I went in for training for that, I met the president at the time of the Kiwanis Club. And he handed me a card and it said youth advocate. And so that intrigued me. I'm like, youth advocate? I advocate for youth. I mentor youth. Youth are important to me. And so I said, what does that mean? And so that's how I really became involved with the Kiwanis Club and became a key club advisor, running the student discovery program now for 10 years at Kimball High School. And then I joined from there. I was introduced to the Boys and Girls Club board, and I was chosen to be on that board as well. And then simultaneously, I was fighting for some issues for seniors, and I became part of the Tracy Golden Agers. And when I joined that organization, I was really too young to be a Golden Ager. But when I turned 45 years later, they gave me an honorary membership and gave me a bill at the same time. I had to pay for my dues. But when I turned 50 last year, then I could technically be a member. But to be an advocate for their voice was very important to me because different ones were having issues. The first issue that I dealt with was busing, and they didn't feel that they had, when you get on the bus, they have the handicap or the elderly space, and they didn't feel like they were being respected to be able to be in those areas, and that the bus drivers weren't speaking up for them to help them. And so that's how I got to know the transportation people, went in and talked to the lady who ran that department to, talk to her about the concerns and being able to help the seniors and to help be their advocate when they get on the bus. And so it's just kind of grown from there within the community. So I've kind of like worked my way up through the community. And even though now that I've been on the council, one of the important things when I first got there was amenities and things for young people to do. And then I also had the seniors in my ear saying, well, there needs to be something for us to do as well. And so when I was looking at some projects that needed to be funded, the only way to get it funded was to put a tax measure out. And this was when I was running for re-election in 2016. And I remember talking to our city manager at the time, and he said, you know what, Nancy, it's not good to try to run for a position and talk about taxes. And I'm like, you know what, it's always the right time to do the right thing. And we need amenities, and we need to present it to the people so that all of us know that we need amenities. And, maybe, just maybe they're willing to buy into it and support that. And they did. And so that was in the Measure V. And so now that that's here, it's very important to me that the amenities are being carried out through that measure. We have done initial funding that went into completing, it was supposed to complete the first phase of Legacy Fields. There's been some complications with some things that happen with that. So there's more needs that they're asking for. But at the same time, the Aquatic Center was a group that really worked hard to help get that measure passed because it wasn't a city-sponsored measure. It was just something that I got on the ballot, but we had to put in word of mouth and walk to get it passed. And the thing that spearheaded that was the gymnasium. And so a gymnasium that could be day and night. And that could not only be for little kids, but also for adult leagues. Also to be able to have not just basketball within the gymnasium, but other indoor court sports, as well as other activities that could be done year round and day and night that could be multi-generational. Hence the name, it became the multi-generational gymnasium. And so there's a lot of things that I'm involved in the community, too many to go into number, but all the organizations that I mentioned already, I'm very active in them. I've held roles from president to treasurer to education chair, or assistant chair rather, and just, a number of things that, because the community is the real commodity here. The citizens make up Tracy. And so wherever I can be of assistance, that's where I step into. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of a lot of things that I've done. A number of things that was already mentioned earlier about the sidewalk, that we ended up getting a grant, a Safe Route to School grant, where there was no money that came out of anybody's personal pockets to have that put there. And it took 4 years for that to happen. It took many community discussions. It took knocking on door to door to get buy-in of the neighbors. And so I'm really proud of that, having been able to help in that situation. Because when I first started out and I was talking to some of the older residents who've lived in that neighborhood or lived in Tracy for all their lives, they said they were promised some things in the past and it hadn't happened. And I said, well, when was this? And they said, well, it was in the 80s. I said, well, in the 1980s, I was either in elementary, junior high, or high school. But I wasn't here and I wasn't in this position. I didn't promise you that. But I'm telling you now, I'm working on it. So I think the important thing over the 8 years is that I've kept every promise that I've made. Everything that I said I would do, I do. Everything that I said I would try to do for people, I've tried my hardest to do for them. And if it's something that I don't agree with, I've always told you upfront, this is why. And if things change to change my mind, then I'm happy to say this has changed my mind. And so I think that's just what's important about being transparent and honest like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love that you're so transparent, and I think that's a very when you're in politics, it's not really something that we see genuinely often. We may hear it, but we don't see it, and you definitely have been that, and the community cannot deny that you are definitely out here supporting and doing all that you can, and being honest about your role in this. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, so who would like to go next? I said Meena, right? So, okay, Meena, you have a question for me?
Yeah, there is one person. Actually, you covered one of the questions because she asked, I see her everywhere. Is she volunteering in so many places? So I couldn't even count. I told her, yeah, the things I know of is Kimball High School, she volunteers. Kiwani, she volunteers. Senior Center, she volunteers. But how many other places are you volunteering?
There's a number of places. There's a number of needs that need to be met. And so I've just always been the one to say, okay, send me, I'll go. If nobody's going to do it, I'll do it. So, but there's a lot of things that I encourage other people to get involved in and do themselves too.
That's really nice. I have one question.
Okay.
Can you give the reason behind Your Voice Matters?
Your voice matters. Your voice matters. I think I've said has become my mantra throughout life. And I have to say, it really goes all the way back to elementary school for me. It goes back to even being like in the first grade and second grade when, people would complain to each other about what the teacher said or didn't say. And then I would be the one to raise my hand and say, you know what, Miss So-and-so, you did say that, and they were really? Okay. And so I realized that at that point, that they would listen if you could at least present how things were respectfully. And I learned as a little girl, even from my mom, that the worst that she could say was no. And so she wasn't going to spank me because I asked for something. The worst that she could do was say no to me. So, I can kind of push the envelope sometime. And, sometimes unexpectedly she said yes. I'm like, yes. And so that's how I've gone through with life, being able to speak up, not only for myself, but to speak up for other people, because everybody's voice matters. And what really sealed that for me is because I felt that my voice mattered. I felt that people listened to me, even as a young person. And so I've always wanted to help give voice to other people, to other young people, even as I grew older, because I'm not in that youth category anymore. I'm 50 years old, about to be 51. But the reality of it is I still feel that young people have something that's of value to be able to contribute, because I had something to contribute as a young person. And I know that older people have richness of experience and wisdom, hopefully wisdom, to be able to share. And so people are never too old to be able to be a part of the conversation, to be able to say what's important to them. Sometimes so much time has passed by and they feel like they've been left out. So it's important to me. And for those who fall in the middle, those young adults, those adults just going through life, they need to be able sometimes to have that voice amplified for them. And so that's when I talk about your voice matter. It's because everybody's voice matters. We may not always agree, but people's voice still needs to be heard. And I think that's the most important thing, is hearing each other and sometimes being able to, build things together that incorporates the corporate voice instead of just mine or just yours go. Because things are not always black and white. But if we can take the collective voices and come to a conclusion that really helps the whole group, then that makes a difference. And so that's why we talk about your voice matters, because everybody's voice matters.
That's nice.
Okay, so Veronica Peterson, do you have something? My hair is like going every which way. Okay, go ahead.
There's so much that I'd like to ask, but let me just be obedient and ask one question. Um, what will be your first priority if you are elected the mayor of Tracy? First priority.
My first priority is kind of an offshoot of what I was just talking about as far as people's voice mattering, because my first priority really is to build a team. So this is the first year for the city of Tracy that there are literally 3 seats that are open, which is the majority, without any incumbents running for them. So while every year that there's an election, which is every 2 years, the mayor has to run and 2 council seats are up. Usually there's at least one incumbent running for council, and there's one, and the mayor is an incumbent running. But we have instituted term limits, and I will be the first council member to term out, and Mayor Rickman will be the second, because Mayor Ives was the first one to term out of that position. So the mayor's seat is open. There's no incumbent running for that. While I am on the council, I'm not running for my council seat. So this is a brand new position for me. So the thing is that the challenges have been more so the last 6 versus the first 2 years on the council has been collaboration. And so my whole way of doing things is really collaboratively. And I believe that every voice should be heard. And I think that it's important that just as I felt my voice was heard when I got on the council, that we hear everyone, whoever is elected to the positions. So my first thing is to help build a team, of no matter who's there, whether we've had differences in the past, whether I know you, whether I don't know you, to be able to bring together a team so that the city council, which is comprised of 5 people, 4 council members and a mayor, to be able to work collectively as a team going forward, because there's a lot of things that we need to get accomplished. And if we can be on the same page, then it's much easier for us to move the agenda items. There's a lot of issues. I think the most crying issue right now is overall economics. There are so many people right now just unsure and unstable of what the future holds in the world, not just in Tracy, but in California, in the United States of America. There's an unrest, there's an unsureness of how life is going to be going forward. Some people I meet in my walks, even through the precincts, that feel free. I'm free. If I get sick, I get over it, whatever. I meet other people that are absolutely terrified. And, I'm scared to breathe. I'm scared to step out my door. And so then I talk to other people who are confused and who are frustrated because they have not worked in 6 months and they have no other income. They didn't qualify for unemployment. They didn't qualify for loans and different things. And so they're just hanging on by a thread, hanging on like, okay, so when this pandemic is over, hopefully I can get a job, but can I get enough money in time to be able to catch up with my rent, to be able to catch up with my mortgage, things that are held off right now. So economics is a very crucial thing that we're going to have to deal with financially. Our city has already been stretched before COVID, but the effects of COVID has stretched us in the millions even further. And so our businesses, small and large ones, had to shut down as well. And so that affects people's jobs and affects people's livelihood and affects people's mental health. Our children are not able to go to school in person. There's so many issues that we're going to have to contend with. And the real main thing, like I said, is a focus, a concerted effort, all on the same page to be able to move the needle on all these things, affordable housing, the homelessness strategic plan that we have in place that we need to begin implementing, that we actually have started implementing. All these things are only going to really positively move forward if we have people on the same page and not vying for position, not vying for attention, not vying for power, but actually being on one team collectively, collaboratively moving forward. So that is my first real thing, is to really help build teamwork so that we can really get everything laid out and strategically plan how we're going to attack all these things.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm not sure if anybody have any other thing. I know that I've been asked in the past, what's your vision, Nancy? If you look at my paperwork, there's a lot of things on there on as far as flyers and things. I think one of the things that has to do with my overall vision. I think that vision is very important, but I think that it's not only about a person's individual vision, but collectively as far as for our city. Because if we all five come in there, right, I want to see this and I want to do this and I want to do that. Now, there are things that will complement each other, true. Um, but overall, the city of Tracy has worked really hard to come up with their own brand. And that is to think within the triangle, a better place, to live, for you to live, work, and play in the triangle. So my whole vision really is for Tracy to be a better place to live, to work, and to play. So all the things that I focus on has to do with that. So to live, you need to not only feel safe, to be safe, but you need to feel safe. So that has to do with supporting our safety. But because many people move to Tracy, as one of the things that I moved for was affordability as well as safety, because I didn't want to raise my children in a place that was ransacked with drugs or crime, and I wanted to make sure that it was safe for my children. Secondly, as far as living, the affordability was why many of us came. The lack of affordability is why many people are leaving, and why our children can't afford to be able to have their own. So a couple years ago, I was able to get, actually 4 years ago, I was able to get that as a council priority, affordable housing. So we're starting to move the needle on that and add some of that into the things that we're doing going forward. And so that's living, but also homelessness. It's something that it affects not only those who don't have a home, but others who do. When homeless don't have anywhere to stay, so they set up their home in a tent in a park. But then other residents don't feel like they can take their children to the park because then they're afraid. And so it affects us all. So it's something that we need to work on, but we all have to be of that mindset that it's a problem and that we need to work on solving it. That's to live, to play. Talked about the amenities and Measure V, so I don't need to go into that. I think it's important that we're able to play here and not always have to go out of town for play and amenities, and then to work here. We're working on bringing in jobs. That has been like the key word for years. Bringing in jobs by bringing in some places like Amazon and some of our other places, FedEx, Ground, Smuckers, a lot of different places. You now can employ those young adults. You have to be 18 and over. And so that's taken some weight off of when my children were in high school and was trying to simply get jobs at fast food places or GameStop. One of my sons could barely get 4 hours a week because he was competing with older people who needed jobs to be able to take care of their homes. And so the more jobs that we can open, it takes the weight off of those different things. So while we do need to bring more head of household jobs here, it's not just saying, I'm going to bring head of household jobs here. There's a lot of background, there's infrastructure that you have to think of. For the last 6-7 years, I've gone to Washington, D.C. to be able to speak to at different levels, to our congressmen, to our senators, to Department of Justice, Department of Transportation, different ones, to be able to get funding sources, funding for our roads, funding for our infrastructure, things that will help us to even build the International Park of Commerce, which is the largest park of commerce in the state of California that we have here in Tracy. We have to work on, our business processes so that it's inviting to be able to not have so many barriers of entry for businesses to be able to come to Tracy as well as expand. So I know this is a lot, and I could talk a long time about that, but those are some of the main things to make it better. So there's a lot that's going on, and at this particular time, it's important that we have stability within our community. This will be different. I know none of you asked me this question, but it will be very different in this election, not only because of the number of seats that are open, but this will be the first time that historically older generational Tracyites have not held this position. But I think it's very important that whoever holds this position, such as myself, have that historical context, have built that root, that foundation in establishing relationships, to know where we've been, at least in recent years, to be able to have a good idea of how we should begin to move forward. Because people can say, I want change, but if they don't know where we've been, then they don't know if they're going back in that same rut or that same circle that was just come out of. So before we end, does anybody have anything else that they would like to say or ask? Any other question that you think would be great to know?
I just want to say that in relation to what you just commented on about being respectful and mindful of the, old Tracy and coming into a new time, and new council members, just to have that balance, because I'm sure that is a very, it's pretty challenging. And so you seem to have it in the bag, and you seem to have a very good grasp and understanding of that we need to. And again, it goes back to your voice matters. All voices matter. So we can't leave out those who've been in Tracy for generations and those who are coming to Tracy to start a new life and to start new generations. So I just really, again, I'm impressed. And I think that's very important. And I'm glad you touched on that. So.
Thanks. On that note, actually, I remember when I first ran in 2010, I ran into some people who were running for me as well for the same office, and I was told that I was a bat and I needed to drop out of the race. And I'm like, what? That didn't sound nice. What does that mean?
Wow.
Well, you're a Bay Area transplant, and you're just trying to come here and tell us what to do and try to run us like we're a big city like LA or somewhere else. And I'm like, well, that's not true, So, but over the years, that same individual came back to me a couple of years later, said, you can put a sign in my yard. I see that you really do care about our community. And so I felt, a little bit of an accomplishment that a number of old Tracy do respect me, that I've gained their respect.
That's huge. It's not little. That's huge, Nancy. Absolutely.
All right. So any final words? We'll start with Meena. Any final words for you today?
Good luck. I hope you become the next mayor. That'll be really nice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your support. Okay. Veronica Peterson.
Absolutely. I agree with everything everyone has said. And I believe that you deserve, or let me change that. Tracy deserves you for mayor. And I can say without a doubt that you are not the regular politician. I've dealt with politicians over the years. I have pictures with big time politicians that I can say I personally know, but I know how it works. And because I know how it works, I know that Nancy is honest and sincere about the people, the residents of Tracy. She really cares about them. She cares about the city, and she won't be your regular, usual politician. She's not a city slicker, that will try to play on words. She say what she means, and she means what she says. And so I'll just end it with this lady who emailed. I'm assuming there's a general email for the council members. And she sent an email about this tree in her neighborhood that was uprooting their sidewalk and their street and was causing all type of problems. And they had been trying to contact people about it. And so Nancy came across the email, and as she has explained, it's a general email for the council members. So you don't know who's going to pick it up or who says, I've got this. But Nancy answered the call. And guess what? That tree is going to be removed next week. So these are the things, she's not just, you can't just tell her about something and she doesn't see about it. And so that's the type of person that Tracy needs. They need her and she needs them. So vote purple, Nancy Young for Tracy Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Letty?
I just want to say thank you for having us all on the show again. And I really hope that our audience that's been watching your show for the past weeks and that's tuned in tonight will share the message with their friends, their neighbors, their families, young and old, so that we can rally around to support you. We're very near the election time, and we just really want those people that may not know about you to know about you. So I'm going to ask the audience to do their part in sharing the message, please. And again, yeah, go purple, vote Nancy Young.
I do have one other thing to say.
Okay.
Let's see. There is a billboard on what street?
Tracy Boulevard and Lenny Road.
All right, everybody who's listening to this, go by there and see Nancy Young's billboard for Tracy.
Take photos, post it on your Instagrams, do TikTok in front of it.
Yes.
You know, let's go viral.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate being on your program.
Well, thank you, ladies. And I wish you all a good night. Thank you so much for your time today.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you again to my special guests today, Ms. Letty Moran, Mrs. Meena Saiprasad, and Mrs. Veronica Peterson. I so appreciate you for sharing how your voice is impacting and making a difference in the world today, and by even shedding some light on my campaign and sharing from your perspective why people should vote Nancy Young for Tracy Mayor. I really appreciate your contribution and your impact today. Now, if you've enjoyed the programming today, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. If you'd like more information about my campaign or would like to participate in any way, go ahead and see the information on the screen below. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young. And remember, until next time, your voice matters. If you have something positive to share and you would like your voice to be highlighted on Your Voice Matters with Nancy Young, please contact me at YVMwithNancy@gmail.com. And if you've enjoyed this programming, please hit the subscribe button right now. Thank you.